Meet the Seattle Vigilante. Like so many comic heroes, this warrior hides his identity. But his identity isn't the only secret he has to keep. After grievous wounds received during combat, Tier 1 operator John Russell begins to recover and comes to terms with his new reality of being an amputee. And as he learns how to use his new prosthetic limb, he finds himself caught up in the bureaucratic red tape that too many wounded veterans experience, the exhausting medboard process. Out of sheer frustration, John takes it out on the criminal scum of the city. But when reality kicks in, John realizes he started something that's having an impact on the greater world around him, and thus has to reevaluate his motives. And moreover, just how far is John willing to go to finish this war he's declared against the criminals in Seattle? And will he even survive? From the creator of IDW's award-winning graphic novel Code Word Geronimo comes a new story about a different kind of warrior, Vindicated Inc., the first of its kind disabled veteran action hero comic. The Vindicated Inc. graphic novel crowdfunding campaign on fundmycomic.com is provided in the description of this video. We hope you become a contributor. Please share this link. Thank you.
Put your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
Bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, here on Pop Culture Minefield. We're both on YouTube and Rumble, and we are on every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You know, I was just about to do my tagline for my other show. Now, I do another show. It's on KGRI Radio. It's on Rumble, and that is every 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on that show, it's Briefing with the Chief. I go over the news, public policy, and politics. And you know, tomorrow's show, I'm going to be interviewing one of the candidates for LA District Attorney, and I'm going to go over a book called NYPD Through the Looking Glass. I do book reviews occasionally, and so I'm really looking forward to it. I do enjoy the NYPD stories. But here on this show, we're gonna do the movie Copland, but before I introduce the movie and my guests, I just want to remind you that I am on the board of the LA Mission, and one of our biggest challenges on the West Coast, and this is from Seattle all the way down to LA, down to San Diego, are the homeless. It's terrible what's going on with the homeless, and I personally believe, and if you listen to my show, Briefing with the Chief, this is bad public policy along the coast where we've not actually met the needs, not only in housing, but also in treatment for mental illness and addiction. And a lot of this can be placed at the feet of many of these Soros-funded DAs who have implemented misguided policies on drug use and drug possession. And that, of course, is causing an explosion in homelessness. But the LA Mission is one shining light, one of a few shining lights in downtown Los Angeles that works on Skid Row. It's losangelesmission.org that does a fantastic job. They meet the needs of the homeless when the homeless are ready to get off the streets. They have 6 to 12 month programs, wraparound services to deal with all of their needs, so that if they have housing needs, they meet that. If they have employment needs, they hone their skills. If they have educational needs, they give them the education they need, including a GED. And of course, they deal with their addiction issues and their medical issues, both physical and mental health issues, so that they can reintegrate to society. But until they're ready to do that, they also meet some basic needs. They'll give people temporary shelter for a night. They'll give them some food, some socks, some underwear, some things that we all take for granted, but are really necessary for many of the people on Skid Row. So just go to losangelesmission.org, make a small donation, $25, $50, $100, and do your good deed today to help the homeless in Los Angeles County, the largest open air drug market, as far as I'm concerned, in the country. So hey, our movie is going to be Copland, and I got two great guests that are going to come on. Now you've seen one of my guests. He's retired Sergeant Cliff Yates. He's got his own show, the Cliff Yates Show, and Cliff worked for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and he worked for a sheriff's department upstate New York. He is in Florida now. He is a California refugee, and that he's escaped the high taxes of the state. And hey, good morning, Cliff. How are you?
Good morning. I am so great. And yeah, I'm enjoying being here on the beach in Free Florida, everybody. It's great. Don't come. Don't come. You wouldn't like it.
Free Florida. Yeah. Well, Stallone, who's in this movie, has announced that he's leaving Los Angeles and he's going to Florida.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Can you believe that? And he's been, I'll tell the story once we get the other guest on, but he's been a part of Los Angeles for a long time.
Yes,
for him to up and leave, I don't think it's just a retirement move, because he's got an ongoing series. I forget the name of it, but he's just probably tired of the taxes, Yeah,
and he has a show. He kind of goes. His daughters have a show on a podcast, pretty popular, and he goes on there quite a bit. And then they have the reality series, and the recent documentary of Stallone was just amazing. It was great.
Yeah, talk about a guy who turned something from nothing into success. I mean, just his own life story. I saw the fight. I looked up the fight in which he got the inspiration for Rocky. I think it was Wapner, or I can't remember the name of the boxer. Just this white hillbilly-looking guy fighting Ali, and he took him all the way, I think, to the 12th round before he got knocked down. But he managed to knock down Ali once. I don't know if you know that's a true story, but it is.
Yeah, I do. I remember that fight now when I was a kid in upstate New York. I remember my dad watching it and talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was. Anyways, I mean, I wouldn't say Mr. Stallone has always done the right thing, but he's he's been very successful in his career. But let's bring on our next guest. Now, our next guy, he's a newbie. This is his first time on Morning Coffee with the Chief. He is retired Sergeant Scott Orr, and he is also a California refugee. He is left for the volunteer state, where they don't have any state taxes. He ran away from California tax man, and
fast as I could.
Yeah. So, hey, Scott, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. So now, how long have you been in Tennessee?
Since I've been living out here since 2020 or 21. Right now I'm sitting in my humble RV waiting as they're out there building my house right now. And my wife retired in June, so she's been out here a lot more, but I had to run away with my tail between my legs.
Yeah.
Never to look back.
Yeah. How many years were you in California before you left? Because I know you're from Washington originally.
Yeah, we moved in '84. I got stationed in Tustin, which is now we have an apartment right across the street. I actually shed a tear when the hangar burned down there, because I worked in that hangar. But yeah. I go back and forth when it's birthdays or Christmas, and my wife's starting to be out here a little bit more than she used to be.
Right.
So,
well, I visited Tennessee. I love Tennessee. If you're near Nashville, if you haven't been to the Hermitage with Andrew Jackson, it's a beautiful place. I went there for a conference, right? It was the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police Conference. And they all were going to go to Honky Tonk Row, which is this place where all these bars and
Broadway.
Yeah, right. And then and they said to me, "Well, where are you going to go, Pat?" I said, "I'm going to the Hermitage tomorrow." Well, what's that? I go, "Well, that's Andrew Jackson's house. We're so close. Why not go?"
Yeah.
And so about 8:00 in the morning, I get this call. Hey, we're all coming, 20 of us. So we're going to rent some vans. We're all coming to the Hermitage too. I go, well, you can drink anywhere and listen to country music anywhere, but you know what? You can't always see the Hermitage. So they all came along with me, and it was a very interesting place. So if you've never been there, Cliff, I would highly recommend.
Yeah, I would love to.
A trip for you when you go to Nashville. Anyway, so hey, thanks for having me on the show, coming on my show for me, guys, and we're gonna do the movie Copland. So let me introduce the movie. Oh, wait a minute. Before I do that, I wanted to extend the conversation we were having before the show. We were having a conversation about a movie I watched, and maybe I'll do down the road, called Fall of Minneapolis, and it was really what were the circumstances, events that happened for the George Floyd incident, all the body cam image, not just what they wanted to show you. The fall of the precinct, they burnt down a precinct house. First time that has ever happened in U.S. history, and the thinking behind the command of, course, the feeling of the officers when that happened. And then the prosecution, the autopsy report, and the prosecution of the police officer. It was very interesting. It was shocking, some of the things that I saw, and I didn't really. I mean, I paid attention to it as a news story, but I didn't dig into the detail. And when I saw it on the air, particularly with 38 years in law enforcement, I recognized the failure of leadership and the betrayal of senior management of those officers, and actually all the officers on the force. And so I would encourage you to watch the movie. I'm going to be on a show called I Detective tomorrow. It's at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Times. It's on the Rumble's the KJR's Rumble channel, and it also broadcasts live on the KJR's digital radio. We're going to go over that movie, and I probably will eventually have the folks who did that movie on my Briefing with the Chief show as well. Anyway, so very, very enlightening. You guys should watch it too, and let me know what you think, right? But today the movie is Copland. Copland was released in 1997. It's a neo-noir crime classic written by James Mangold, and it stars an ensemble cast. Now, it really does star some really big names at the time, and I was looking at the cost, $15 million. They probably all went to the cast here for the most part. Sylvester Stallone, Harvey Keitel, Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, and actually, if you look at Michael Rappaport, who I'll talk about in a little bit, but if you look at the extended cast list, there were people on there that I recognized from The Sopranos. Now, I when I was off injured for a year, I binge watched a lot of things. So Breaking Bad and The Sopranos were two of my binge watching shows, and I really enjoyed The Sopranos. But Frank Vincent, yeah, he played Phil Leotardo on The Sopranos, and I don't know if you noticed, but Soprano's wife, Eddie Falco, is actually in this movie too, and she was the bomb squad tech that helped Figs burn his house down, I guess. But yeah, a lot of really great actors in this show. Cliff, you're an aficionado of Hollywood. Anybody else I missed that we ought to talk about?
Not that I can think of, man. It saddened me. I love Ray Liotta, and he just passed within the last year and a half, I think it's been. But yeah, a lot of it. Harvey Keitel, I love all those guys in this movies, and yeah, it was great.
I just did the movie Taxi Driver. I think that's the last movie I did,
Yeah.
and De Niro was in it, and Keitel was in it, and they're both short dudes.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch the show, you'll see that Harvey Keitel was wearing these big platform shoes. I don't know if you remember those ones where the heels are like this big, and
it was kind of filmed similar. There was some similar way they filmed it as a Taxi Driver, kind of the same kind of way, kind of a seedy view of the city and music wise. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. So, Scott, what do you think? What'd you think of the movie? Did you like it?
Well, I went to see it in the theaters with my wife, and we were talking about it when I told her I was going on the show, and she says, well, you definitely had some opinions after we went and saw it in the movie theater. But of course, that was 1997, and I'm quite a bit older now, so I don't remember what those opinions were. But it's just some great, I love Ray Liotta. I was so sad when he passed away. A lot of great guys, but my wife's aunt was in television for a long time on a couple of shows, and we went to a few parties with her, and I was amazed at how small a lot of these actors were. And I'm like, wow, on screen, if you look at Tom Cruise, you think that, in scenes that he's in, that he's some tall guy, well, especially when they stretched him to be Jack Reacher. But anyway, he's just a short guy. He comes up to my shoulder, and I'm not that tall, but it's just amazing how they got to wear platform shoes, or some step on a box, or so they don't film the bottom part, below the knee on them or anything. But yeah, but that's a great cast. I mean, and just like Sylvester Stallone playing, usually he's the hero and the tough guy and the guy out in front of everything, and he's playing this kind of slubbish guy who steps up finally at the end. But you wouldn't expect him to play that kind of part anymore. I mean, maybe back then, but
yeah, he plays kind of just a goofy guy who's enamored with these guys. And we've seen guys like that, though. I mean, and that is part of cop culture, right? You have the guys that get stuff done, and people are gonna look up to them, and other people get it. They get enamored with them. I mean, we've seen it on our own apartments. Certain stations are held in high esteem. For me, it was always the individual. If the Mitchell was a good guy, then I had respect for him. It wasn't just the location you worked, but Heflin. I mean, as Stallone's character, just because these guys were all New York City cops, he had a perspective of them.
And I think because he wrestled, with the reason for his injury was he made a moral call, and because of that, he was unable to fulfill that dream of working for the city PD. But then all these guys who've kind of been corrupted, they get to work, where he would have liked to, and yet he made a moral judgment which cost him, and then he kind of wrestles with going that way. He's kind of made a fool of in the beginning there.
Well, you worked upstate New York, Cliff, and then you were looking to work a big city department.
New York.
There was you had that. You dealt with that. I don't want to say insecurities. That's not the right word. It was you wanted to challenge yourself to work in a place where you felt if you're going to do policing, you do it in New York, you do it in Los Angeles, you do it in Chicago, right? Yeah,
because if you said, where are you from? I'm New York. Oh, where? You're Rochester. Oh, upstate. You're not really New York. Yeah, we don't accept you.
Yeah, they only want you for your tax money, dude. Not
yeah. So I became enamored with NYPD, and I liked when they showed One Police Plaza, because I remember sending my application in there, and then eventually taking the test. And actually, I got hired prior to being put on a list in New York. I was already hired in LA in 6 months, and then 6 months later, I'm put on band 3 of NYPD. Yeah.
Right. Well, Scott, when you came to LA, obviously, I mean, when I came to LA, my dad had worked at Detroit Police. So if you're going to work I mean, that was the largest department in the state of Michigan, and that's where stuff was happening. And for me, it's like I saw what my dad went through, and then my uncle worked for Wayne County Sheriff, which is the county that Detroit is in. And he had his issues too. They both had their issues that they had to deal with working in that environment. And I came to LA, I go, my dad worked, it was murder capital for like 15 years, Detroit. So, and he worked some of those worst precincts forever. And I said, well, I don't think I need to do that with LAPD. Let me try the sheriff's department. I never actually applied to LAPD, even though that was the IT department, right? And I just said, I don't need to prove anything. And then I go to a department that has just as many problems, just as many issues, just as much urban decay and crime. Well, maybe not as much, but certainly more than enough to get your feet wet if that's what you were looking for. So why did you pick sheriff versus LAPD, or did you try everybody?
Well, being in the Marine Corps, in the 80s, we didn't make any money. I mean, my wife worked retail, and so when being a Marine, you get out of the Marine Corps and it's like, okay, I don't have a job skill. I mean, they teach you how to kill everybody from day one, but they don't teach you, a skill other than, you could be some guys go to truck school. I went to aviation ordnance, which is loading bombs on airplanes, but I was in helicopters, large helicopter squadrons. So it was machine guns. So we kind of morphed into being door gunners. So that was my skill. So when I got out, I needed a job, and I was talking to my gunnery sergeant. He says, well, there's a job fair over at headquarters, and they have police departments, fire departments, military contractors. And so I went over there, and I filed I think I filled out like 15 applications. So I was denied by Santa Ana PD by the psych. So then Anaheim PD, they sent me to the same psych. So I knew that wasn't going to work. And then my mom and dad had divorced. So my mom was dating the DEA supervisor in LA. And I was talking to him and I said, hey, I got a choice between the sheriff's department wants to hire me and so does LAPD. And he goes, well, I worked LAPD for 10 years, go with the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
So I went with the sheriff's department, which was probably the better choice, much better choice. But yeah, I came from a family that was not cop friendly. So when I became a cop, it wasn't a jubilant, oh, my son's a cop. My dad would be more like, he's an effing cop. So, and then it, it was 31 years. It was 31 good years. And I saw things like, I came from a very small community in Western Washington State. So when we first came down here, my wife grew up in big cities. So I'm like, what language is that? She's like, that's Spanish. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know what that is. And then, as soon as we graduate, I go to the jail and they send us all to the gay pride parade. That was a huge eye opener. I never seen stuff like that going on. Maybe you heard about some doofus guy where I'm from, getting with a cow or something, but not that kind of stuff. So it was an eye opener for, first, and then dealing with, the jail. I was on 9,000 floor where everybody came up from drunken public to murders would all come up to our floor to be separated. And that was an eye opener, but it was good training. Then I did a lot of ride alongs and it was a good career. I enjoy it. My son's a cop now. I don't know why, but especially in today's, I told him we never worried about cameras or cell phones or if you had a cell phone, you're a drug dealer. That's how we looked at it.
Yeah. Or beeper. Yeah. I think the thing that when we came on, I remember that when we came on, people said, and now I never applied for LAPD because I had a perception of big city versus, I always felt like I could always retreat from the busy areas to the suburban areas. And that's how I kind of balanced my career out, and but I remember a lot of people, they were told, don't go to LAPD, go to the sheriff. That was the attitude in the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
And it's kind of flipped now. Right now, everybody's saying, but I think, the sheriff's department is just, politically, they just are in the gun sights of the local media because I think it's because they just want to get rid of the elected sheriff. I really think that's what this is all about. And I think having an elected sheriff is critical. And I think if you watch The Fall of Minneapolis, one of the reasons why is we didn't have a political official who also understood what was necessary and what was appropriate. We had weak knees mayor and city council. We didn't have a mayor who knew what it meant to be a cop. I mean, a sheriff who knew what it meant to be a cop and stepped in. Actually, that sheriff should have stepped in and said, what the hell are you guys doing?
Yeah.
But he didn't. I think in the Rodney King thing, our department did. They closed down, or they put MCJ on 12 and 12s when that thing started. And they flooded downtown with 300 deputy sheriffs and knocked the rioting in downtown off. And they retreated to other places to terrorize the city. But yeah, so let's get into our show. So, hey, I'm glad you guys are on. So let's show the first scene. And the first scene is characters. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this scene is because it really does introduce two guys. It introduces Biggs, who is Ray Liotta, who plays kind of he does end up doing some despicable stuff here, but his character is friendly. His character is cynical, but he's friends with Freddy. He probably looks down a little bit at Freddy, but he likes him. They become buddies. He probably is closer to him because he's cynical not only with NYPD but also this group of guys that he fell into. But there he is smoking too. This is probably what killed him.
Yeah.
Killed him. Yeah, he was a lifeline left. But so I just like, because Heflin does, or Sylvester Stallone does play kind of a doofus in this movie. He's built like, you can see he's built like a block. He's probably not tall, but he's, in comparison to the other characters, you can see he's muscular. But we've already talked about these two guys, so let's roll right into the bachelor party. Now, the premise of the story for Heflin is he's been elected. Sylvester Stallone has been elected to the sheriff in this town, and there's only 3 people on this department, and the town is Garrison, New Jersey, which doesn't exist, so it's fictional. But it's a town that's been developed for cops, allegedly, with in partnership with the mafia, and in exchange for giving them this town with low interest rates and affordability and a safe place to raise your kids, they are the mafia is given to some degree free reign within the 37th precinct. Kind of, I mean, they have NYPD's had a lot of scandals, but this is it's fantasy. What do you think, Cliff?
Yeah, and it's interesting to even go further how this whole little Copland was developed. So, Sylvester Stallone, Heflin, of course, we find out later that, he's actually, they elected him sheriff, really, because all these coppers kind of decided, because they're the deciding votes and they're in bed with the mafia. So he's indebted to them for that job. At the same time, he's, as I said before, he's always wrestling with these moral decisions to make. Yet he's reminded by these guys later in the show that, hey, but for us, you wouldn't even be the sheriff. So he kind of has to, go along to get along to a certain extent. And I like to show this Four Aces bar. I had no idea really. Well, I guess I did, but in LA, there was several. I know when I went to Temple Station, there was specifically a cop bar there. I can't remember the name of it, but they had all of police stuff all over. It was in the city of Arcadia. Maybe you remember it, but it was interesting to see this cop bar and the culture that goes with going there and who's involved in it. But I love this first scene inside the bar.
Yeah, it's. I know the bar you're talking about.
Yeah.
But, any cop bar, if you walk in and you're not a cop, everybody's, it's like
the
old E.F. Hutton commercials. Everybody stops and looks at you coming in the door, and it's like, who the hell are you? And then, of course, later when the IA guy shows up, or De Niro shows up, and they're all like, they start crapping in their pants because here's, somebody they know that they don't like, and it's in their bar, but they really can't say anything to him. But I think with
go ahead,
Scott Stallone, that it was also somebody they knew that they could kind of control.
Yeah. Yes,
he was
that's
kind
right.
of a doofus, and if we put him in a spot, and so he's going to do whatever we tell him to do. But those guys that you always kind of put down like that, they're usually the first ones that shoot you in the back.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree, and and you do see that in police culture where they manipulate people who are a little weaker.
Yes,
it's just so that they can be and allow them to be part of the crew, even though they see them as weaker, because they bring some kind of benefit to whatever that group wants. We see that in the police culture. We're just seeing it. It just happens to be two different departments, but we've seen it where it's it's within our own department. And I always, we're three guys who are our own people. We didn't, I wasn't really worried about what my peers thought of me. I did, but I said, I'm doing good work. If people don't see it, I'm not worried about that. But I grew up a blue collar, man. You just, it's hey, I come to work. I'm not, and to make a living and support my family. I'd love to have friends and get along with folks at work, but I'm not going to sacrifice my values for some. This isn't a group thing here. We're all individuals working together to do a job, and that's kind of way. And I did it. That's just the way I was. I didn't. But I also, because you grow up in a cop family, I of other people, I just didn't feel the need to identify with the peer groups, and because I lived it my whole life. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but cool. If your dad was a cop, did you you put it in kind of it gives you a little
dad,
different mindset.
And like Scott, he grew up in a tiny small town. My dad was a chief of police, 4 officers. He had been with the LA. The
was it
local
Garrison?
Sheriff. No, it was way upstate near Rochester. It's like 500 miles away. But my dad was a Marine, my uncle was a Marine, and so I grew up with that culture. And like you say, you're loyal to values and principles, not to people. I think that's probably where you're coming from. And we grew up in that environment, so you're kind of, that's just the way you think. And so it would be very hard for you to be drawn in another direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I needed a job, and I like Scott. When I came to LA, I needed a job. That was the most important thing to me. The social life was just secondary, and it was always secondary. And then when you get married and have kids, it's like, okay, that's the third part of the issue. It's the job, to raise the family, and once you have kids, your social life, if you're focused on family, your social life ends up becoming who's on the soccer team, the swim. You end up socializing with all the people that are on these teams that your kids are on, right? Or they're you know what I mean? You get your kids take over your life. Hey, let's roll the bachelor party scene, Martine, again, if we haven't rolled it. And so now we have this town where these guys, and the interesting thing, and I didn't mention, I should mention it, that we have certain areas of LA County where there are a lot of cops that live. And those are not necessarily easy places for other cops to work, because everybody, for whatever, thinks they should get a pass. And we saw that in this movie, right? We saw that, hey, it's okay for us to speed because we're the cops, right? Freddie, and that does happen. That really, anybody, I don't know, Santa Clarita comes to mind as one of those areas.
CHP, all the jail deputies,
Simi Valley.
Simi Valley, right,
Valley,
yeah. And so, could you imagine being a cop there and every other person you pull over? Because I actually have never been pulled over when I was a cop, and because I drove the speed limit, right? But and sometimes you go, I never been pulled over, and I go, what's so hard about driving in LA and not getting pulled over? It just and it wasn't that I was so focused on the traffic laws. I just didn't really drive too fast, and didn't have I wasn't HOA or HUA when I was driving, right? So, but anyway, so at this bachelor party, it's starting to flesh out. This guy is Michael Rappaport. He plays Superboy. Now, I don't know if you guys pay attention to this guy politically.
I do.
But he is a hardcore leftist. He hates Trump until October 7th.
He's coming around. He's coming around.
He's Jewish until October 7th. And we know what happened October 7th, right? Hamas went into Israel, killed a bunch of people, and our colleges exploded with this anti-Semitic behavior. Politicians were talking about it, and the Democrats are kind of waffling on their support of Israel. They're not shouting down this anti-Semitic behavior. And suddenly this hardcore name calling, because he calls Trump all kinds of divisive names, and suddenly he's starting to shift his political viewpoint.
He has. He was just
I
on
still
a
hate
podcast,
Trump, but the Democrats are crazy.
Given the choice, he said, "I'm going to have to. If this is my choice, I will have to vote for Trump." Yeah, he was just on a PBD podcast. Yeah, so
it's so Scott, I've heard this saying, and it's a pretty funny saying. There's this black conservative. He's on YouTube, and I like to watch YouTube, and he says, the best thing you do for a liberal is give them whatever they want. Then they become a conservative.
Exactly.
Do you ever hear that saying? But it's kind of true. Okay,
well,
high crime.
I always heard the saying is that you're a liberal until you get crime committed against you, and then all of a sudden you're a conservative.
Or you get your first check, and you look at how much you have to pay in taxes. Yeah. So, but anyway, so Mike Rappaport, he plays this young guy who's legendary on the department because he's saved a bunch of women, delivered their babies. So they nicknamed him Superboy. He's related to one of the main character, Harvey Keitel's character, Ray. He's like his nephew or something like that. So he got a pass into Garrison, right? He got his low interest house, and he gets into this tiff with these guys leaving the bachelor party. And they point what apparently is a steering wheel lock. It looked like a gun. He thinks it's a gun. He gets a blowout because of some, his tire was compromised because of a glass bottle. He thinks he's getting shot at. Now, of course, I'm just watching this from a chief's perspective. I'm thinking, what the hell is this guy doing? Just get away from these guys. What are you doing? And he's trying to chase him down with his badge and all this stuff. And this is okay. Culture. I mean, that would have been my first question. Okay, so why were you chasing him drunk? And why did you start shooting at him, right? I mean, even if they thought they shot at his tire. I mean, so anyways, so In terms of the scene, Scott, what'd you think of the scene and the idiocy of this guy Superboy, who's not so super in this scene?
Well, I mean, he's a hell of a shot to shoot both of them through a back window while both cars are moving.
Drunk.
Yeah, while drunk. I give him props for that. But I don't know, even if, the whole putting the badge out the window and my whole thing was when I was off duty, I was off duty. I was just a very well-paid witness. I wasn't getting involved unless it involved, directly involved me or my wife and kids. Other than that, I'm just going to watch and make sure. We were at a Pop Warner football game, and this huge fight broke out between one of our other team divisions and the team from Compton, and it actually was the Fullerton's fault, not the Compton players. And everybody who knows us is going, are you going to go in there and break it up? And we're like, I go, yeah, I'm going to do what I should do. I called 911, and they're looking at me like, you're not going to do anything. I'm like, no. If I wait in there and they say, and I start telling people I'm a cop, I'm going to be the one that gets the beat down. So I just called 911. If it was something that I had to, pull out my gun because there was funny things, one side saying he had a knife, and I'm like, no, he didn't. I was standing right here. Nobody had a knife. But if they did, then my choice would have been different. But
to me,
it's just, he would have been, if he was sober and put his badge out the window and shot, he probably would have been covered anyway because they were pointing what he thought was a barrel of a weapon at him.
Yeah.
But being drunk, chasing him down, putting your badge out the window, and then just shooting at him, even though they pointed a gun at you. After they drove away, there wasn't really any threat. So
exactly.
I just thought, I guess it's one of those scenes where they have to put it in the movie, so then it pushes it along.
Well, yeah, they have to have the controversy, and then I'm thinking, so he ends up shooting them, kills them both, right? And and then all of his friends show up to help craft the narrative. And you're right, there was a point in time where he was probably okay with what he did, right?
Right.
And it could even probably get away with saying, yeah, I shot legitimately because I thought there was a weapon. And they find the steering wheel thing, and it could look like a weapon, but and they decide that they're going to cover up. Okay, you did this and you did that, and this is what happened. And then they decide to plant a gun in front of an ambulance, a paramedic worker who and I don't know if that guy. You notice that guy? He's on Bosch.
Oh,
yeah.
He plays a homicide detective on Bosch. If you watch, and that guy's the guy on Bosch, and he's a black guy, and he says, no way. And Ray realizes this is not going well, and so he tells Superboy just to pretend like he jumped off the bridge, right, and that he killed himself.
But Superboy's yelling that we don't need to do this. We don't need to do this.
Yes.
And
right. Yeah. He's realizing, this may not look good, but it's not as bad as you guys think.
Right.
But I think part of this is, I don't think they want, what Ray doesn't want is an investigation into his whole crew, because his whole crew is dirty.
Why did you all show up? You all showed up drunk,
Right. He doesn't want Mo, who is De Niro's character, to use this incident to pressure other people to speak, which is what ultimately they start doing, right? That you can tell, as in the first interview that he's doing with there was a black guy there, a black officer there, right? And they were pressuring him eventually that it wasn't really about the shooting. It was about getting information on what's going on at Garrison. It was about getting information on what's going on with Ray and his whole crew. And I'll bring up this story just because I think it's, every now and then, NYPD they have their issues, right? And one of the stories that really just seems pretty close to this is their 77th precinct. It's the Buddy Boys, and they had like 5 or 6 guys or more than that who were corrupt. But they weren't working with the mob. They were just ripping off dope dealers, and they were ripping off money and doing that kind of stuff. But it predated this movie by about 10 years. And I'm sure, as I've seen with other movies, these stories always seem to work their way into a script, real life stories, always seem to work their way into a script. So culture does influence pop culture, does influence the movies. And these guys, Buddy Boy, I think I want to say 5 officers were convicted, and then they like transferred like 90 out up to get rid of the poisonous culture at the precinct, because it was widespread. So it was more than 5 guys, but they could only really make strong. So I looked it up. So the NYPD, and I always remind people this, because you have to remember, like when you're talking Chicago or NYPD, a lot of this was acceptable for 100 years, corruption, and these guys come up in a corrupt system, and it's hard for us in LA to understand that, because there was a point in time where LA made a clear decision that they were going in a different direction, when it was Parker and Biscaloo, where they actually turned the departments around and focused them on real professional police work. And NYP ultimately gets there, but theirs is a lot longer struggle, because the culture of corruption is ingrained. Cliff, you're from New York State. That's just part of being in New York City, right?
Yeah, of course. It was totally different in upstate New York, where you're dealing with, and Scott will probably go along with this. Everybody knows everybody. It would be pretty hard. You know what I mean? You don't pick your nose anonymously. Everybody in town saw it. And so he really didn't have, and he didn't have the families that grew up generation after generation and covering each other in anonymity. And I want to go to Scott's point about badging yourself, right? And this was a good point. One of our brothers in the LA Sheriff's Department happened to him, where he was at a gas station. He had a group starting to surround him, and he pulled out his gun, and they got back into their cars and they left. And he brought up the point. He goes, "When I pulled out my gun, I was a crazy man with a gun. If I had pulled out my badge, I would have been a guy who had rules, and that would have taken all the power away from me." And I thought that was a good point.
Yeah. What do you think, Scott?
Well, was it Capone that said you get more with a gun and a kind word than you do with just a kind word? So,
I'm going to look that quote up, because that's a good quote.
Yeah, that's
yeah, it's what they notice first is, like, later on we'll go over the scene. You notice the shot when Heflin's got a shot. You notice those things way before you notice their face, right? And that's what you're looking at. And let's roll the interview scene, because this is one of the things So this is the case where they're putting the pressure. IA's already putting the pressure on one of the witnesses. I think they got the black kid in there now, and they're trying to pressure him to roll. And they get mad at him. And first of all, you're not allowed to yell. There's certain things you're not allowed to do in IA, at least. But it's funny, he's got an attorney with him, and he tells the attorney to shut up. That does happen in internal affairs investigations, right? The attorneys don't really get a chance to talk, right? They do the best they can to help their client out. But
absolutely.
Here it is. He's asking about Garrison, New Jersey. He's not asking about. It's not really about the bridge incident. The bridge incident is the key that's going to open up the door to the corruption that's going on in Garrison. It's really clear in this scene that it probably does. So I still think they made a mistake with Ray, and Superboy jumping off the bridge, because now they just complicated the whole thing. But in reality, these guys are focused on these guys. Ray knows that is Harvey Keitel's character. And he's just trying to avoid the scrutiny onto his corrupt crew. And that's what I saw in this scene. Scott, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. I've been in several interviews. Yeah, I mean, I was in an interview and with a lieutenant and a sergeant in one interview, and my attorney or my representative started talking, and they're like, you need to be quiet, because we're not asking you the question. So... But yeah, they didn't yell or anything. But I mean, they always play it up, no matter what. Every Hollywood movie, they always play up the yelling. I mean, I don't think I was ever really yelled at, except for maybe 2 sergeants yelled at me one time like that. Got in my face and yelled at me, which was my fault. But
I did get yelled at in a ICIB, Internal Criminal Investigation Bureau, and I didn't have a rep at the time with me. And man, you would know who it was who was yelling at me, but they told me, just so you know, Mr. Yates, let me tell you what we do. We are not internal affairs. We file criminal charges on you. That's what we do. Do you got that straight? Oh man, it was tough. And then when I invoked my rights, they really went crazy. But so that did happen to me, man. Yeah.
Okay, then I'm not going to talk to you. Yeah.
I never had a problem with internal affairs.
No, but this was ICIB.
Yeah, that's a little different, but
yeah,
I never had a problem with internal affairs because
no, me neither. No,
I understood their job.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hey, it's not a job I would ever take. Yeah, I was asked to go there. I said, hey, hell no. But I never had a problem. I mean, I always went in there and said, yeah, it was me. I did it.
I was talking to a guy and he said that ICAB came to talk to him and a bunch of others on a very highly political case. And they were throwing criminal charges on these guys to extend the statute date. So you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
They had the administrative date for, you had to get the administrative investigation done a year. But if you throw a criminal case on them, then you can extend that statute date. So it was clearly a thinly veiled effort to extend the statute date and manipulate the process, which I thought was bullshit. Either you got it or you don't. And they were trying to get a conviction on one guy, and they had a bunch of guys filed for conspiracy. And I heard the story, and the guy said, yeah, they said, okay, you guys, we're going to ask you some questions, but this is bullshit. We don't want to be here. That's what the investigators said.
Yeah.
And the guy said, I invoke, so everybody invoked. And, so about a year later, I was the chief, and I had to make a decision on whether I was going to keep this case open or not. And I shut it down. I said, hey, look, here's the deal. I said, we denied these guys their due process rights by throwing criminal investigations on these guys and holding them back for 3 years, held their careers back for 3 years because they had this political case that they wanted to make and they weren't making it. The case got kicked out of court multiple times. I said, what are we doing here? If we expect officers to operate under the bright light of law and not operate in the gray area, then we shouldn't be operating in the gray areas, managers. And that's what I wrote. That's what we wrote on our memo. We denied these guys their due process rights. And that's just how I felt about it. But so you can't cross the line. And this is a political investigation for them. Clearly there's corruption. So I'm okay with them pulling out the stops, going after these guys. But the scene was actually very realistic, except for maybe a little bit of the yelling. That's what I thought. You guys agreed with that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's show the Only Cops Live Here, and we kind of already talked about it. And I'm sorry, Mo from IA comes into the bar, and it shakes these guys up. And De Niro's character, I actually liked his character in this one. He does a pretty good job. I mean, he's a good actor. I may not like his politics. And he hasn't morphed like Michael Rappaport has.
No.
He's still anti-Trump and anti-everything to the right. I mean, it's interesting. Really wealthy people have this attitude, but us people who are who got dirt under our fingernails and calluses on our hands, we have a different opinion of the politics of the day than the elite. And that's how I kind of see these guys. But when the politics finally impacts them, like with Michael Rappaport, then suddenly they start changing their tune. Or Sylvester Stallone, he leaves town, right? Because he wants to get away from the taxes. But here's what we talk about. Mo from IA goes into the cop bar, and it's all pretty much cops in the bar, right?
Right.
And that's their hangout for the town. I mean, it's the cop town, it's cop bar. Could you imagine being the guy serving the drinks here? Because in addition to having an attitude towards Heflin, they probably have an attitude towards him too. And but yeah, so what did you think of the scene? Cliff, you already said it looked like the typical cop bar. It's not dark enough for me to be a cop bar. So
yeah, you're right.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah.
It
kind of highlights the culture and kind of the cone of silence. Again, the guy comes in and all of a sudden there's no talking, and I'm sure whoever works there is kind of in line with who his patrons are and their culture and their way of thinking. So this is just an outsider. They were waiting for him to leave. Do what you're going to do and get out of here.
Yeah, you definitely saw the pucker factor go up when he walked in.
Yeah.
Which he knew he was doing. Somebody said, "Hey,
Right.
this is Cop Shop." Yeah, we are all old friends who work together, and
Yeah.
so a little bit of Cop Shop is coming out as we talk about the
Yeah.
movie. But so this guy Mo here, or De Niro's character, he knows exactly what he's doing. I mean, he walks in, doesn't even acknowledge them, and goes and gets a cup of coffee and just lets it. I mean, that's a pretty good investigator, right? You're
Oh
getting
no,
guy,
that's great tactic.
these great
Because
tactics.
all in their head, all of a sudden it's like, why is IA here?
Yeah.
And
So
everybody, so
what do they
Scott,
know?
you were an investigator, right? You use
Oh, yeah.
silence as in an interview, or keeping what you're trying to do close to the vest, because it just keeps people guessing, and they make mistakes, right?
Oh yeah, I had a young detective assigned to me at OSS at the gang unit, and I said, hey, when we go in to interview this guy, we're not going to say a word. We're just going to sit. You're going to sit down in front of him, and I'm going to stand up against the back wall, and we're not going to say a word. We're just going to look at him. So we sat there for probably maybe a good 3 or 4 minutes, but you got to have that discipline not to want to say anything. So finally, he's like, there's no way the deputies could have seen me put that gun behind the boat. And I looked at the other investigators, said, we're out. We're done. Thanks. I mean, he just acknowledged he had the gun.
Well, for me, this Cliff. So this means the writing is actually pretty good, right? I mean, I know you wrote a book, and you've been working with some folks who write books, but this just means that whoever wrote the story kind of understood the psychology of a criminal, right? Because really, De Niro's character is playing on, I'm trying to get away with this, even though these guys are cops. I'm trying to get away with this, and
it accurately depicts the adversarial relationship. It really accurately depicts how do we used to refer to IA, right? Hey, the suits are here. And so typically you have him in his uniform of a suit, and the street coppers are in their off-duty attire. So people are in their their respective uniforms, and they're playing their roles.
Well, the thing about it is, one of the things that I watched it on, you remember, did I have you do the movie with me, Prince of the City, Cliff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And remember what Robert Lucio, the guy who, or no, it was one of the investigators, said, cops always want to tell the truth. They want to tell the truth, because even though they're engaged in bad stuff, there's something, for most of them, there's something good in there with them, right?
Yeah.
And so they feel the need to tell the truth, which is what brought Robert Lucio, which is a true story. That is a true story.
That's a true story. Yeah.
To those investigators, and he ended up having to roll over on all of his guys.
Yeah.
But that anxiety exists. We used to teach a strategy, and Scott would know this because I think he ran that team. It's called behavioral detection, right? Remember the strategy we used with our guys, and where we would have uniformed guys go on the trains, and then we'd have plainclothes guys just look and see how they reacted to the deputies.
Right. Yeah.
And then you talk to the guys who clearly reacted in a way where they were concerned that the uniformed deputies were on the train. And if you just followed that strategy, you came up with some pretty good hooks, right?
Yeah. Who uses that a lot now is Customs and Border Patrol.
Yeah.
They use that all the time, especially, at airports and baggage. They'll come down there and walk around, and they'll have people in plain clothes. Because we worked with them when I was my last unit. We'd go to LAX and work with them and airport police. But yeah, and they just have people in plain clothes to see the people that are like, oops, that's not my bag. I better leave right now. And there's a great show called Catch a Smuggler on, I think it's Nat Geo, and it shows how the airports basically profile you, but they don't call it profiling because that's not politically correct anymore. But
it's behavioral detection, right? So you're looking for certain behaviors, and when you talk about it that way, because we trained very specifically for that, and you ran that team for a little while, for a year, and it was very successful. But it's one of those skills you have to constantly work, because it is perishable. And but it's very successful. So De Niro's character is using that same kind of strategy. How will these guys react? Let's disrupt them. Heck, if you had wires on these guys, they're and they're talking. These are the kind of strategies that they use to get these guys talking.
Yeah, that's one thing I in the movie that I didn't understand is that he's got this whole case, loads and loads of cases where when they shut him down, that they show him throwing him, away or throwing him in a pile. But you would think that he would have got a search warrant to wiretap it if there's all that. And then why wouldn't you call in the FBI? Because, I'm not, the FBI does great at what they do, but they're really good because they have a lot of money.
Yeah. So, I'll make an argument why they probably didn't. One of the things that comes off about De Niro's character is it's about him making the case.
True. It's hard to wrestle things from an investigator once he believes that it's his case.
He's going to do this. This is personal for him. Right. He doesn't want to turn it over. That's why he's acting. They don't yell, but you don't see people throwing files around either in offices. So they always make this much more entertaining. But you get the impression this is very personal for him, and he wants to take these guys down. So they don't want to give up their case to the feds or for anybody else. That's kind of how I see it. And also, I think there's an attitude NYPD can clean up its own. And so there might have been a cultural attitude amongst the people trying to do good work. And I'm reading, I'm going to interview Vic Farrar, who wrote, NYPD Through the Looking Glass. And one of the interesting things he said is they hated IA, and that what the department, but the people who were sent to Internal Affairs were people who they were the sad sacks. They were the people who weren't, they couldn't make it anywhere else as an investigator. They were second tier cops, but that's who went there. And the name headhunter was appropriate because they saw getting ahead as a career thing. And what NYPD do, and I'm going to ask Vic about it because I thought it was just an interesting story, is they said what they do is they test everybody to get their gold shield. Everybody wants to get their gold shield, be an investigator. And what they started doing was, and then you'd have all these guys, they would all test, and then, auto theft and narcotics and homicide, all these folks would be there, and they get to pick. So it's like the combines, right? Or it's like the NFL draft. They're picking who they're getting, they're trading and all this other stuff. And what NYPD did, which was really curious, they said, okay, hold on a second. Internal Affairs, you got first pick, you get 5 guys. You pick the top 5 guys. And if the guy said, if it was you, Scott, said, okay, Scott, you come to Internal Affairs for 2 years, you do a good job, and you get to pick your assignment, right? And the guys, but if you don't come to Internal Affairs after we pick you, you go back to patrol, and you won't get another chance. And so what happened is IA switched from being a place that was hated, and everybody was seen as just trying to build their career, and they were seen as second-tier investigators, not that good, to very skilled investigators, some of the best, and the attitude was, hey, this is a necessary evil. At least they got good guys doing it that are going to give me a fair shake. So it was really a big culture change with the NYPD, and it's a very interesting story. And that's, I think our department, I don't know about LAPD, but I think for the most part, we had decent investigators that went to IA, people we actually knew that were good street cops.
Yeah. I like I said, I was one of those guys that if I did it, I did it. I wasn't going to go in there and try to sugarcoat it. And they got the proof right there in front of them. What am I going to do? Lie? Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's my MDT traffic. Yeah, it came from my car when I was working with my name, and what am I going to try to tell them it wasn't me? You got it on camera? Well, no, they got it on print.
Cliff, what do you think? My story there from Vic. It's an interesting story, right?
That was interesting and it probably worked well, knowing now we're going to have a group of investigators who are going to be with an end game of going to a choice assignment, and there was motivation now to go down that career path. As before, like you said, you're going to have peers that aren't that qualified or efficient, and then there's no other direction to go in. So by changing the career path, they got a higher quality of person.
Yeah.
people were treated a little differently, and then people started to look at that group in a different way. Yeah, absolutely.
So, having been a chief, I would look at whoever came up with this idea. I'd go, okay, you're promotable. That's a fantastic idea, because it just completely changed the culture of a hated unit, and they're not really called the Rat
Correct.
Squad anymore.
Yeah.
They're looked at differently, and you open up the door for good guys to say, I can trust Cliff over at IA. I'm going to give him a call. Right. And that's what they experienced on NYPD. So it's really good. And I'm glad I read the book, because when I do a review, I do read the whole book, Cliff. So it's interesting.
Me too. Yeah.
Because I get in the whole thing when I do a book review, or if somebody comes on my show. I think we are at halftime here, and it is time for a commercial. And Martine, are you ready to go?
Yes, Chief. We
All
have
right, let's-
a 2-minute break, so if you
2-minute
need
break.
time-
If you got to get potty, yeah.
Meet the Seattle Vigilante. Like so many comic heroes, this warrior hides his identity. But his identity isn't the only secret he has to keep. After grievous wounds received during combat, Tier 1 operator John Russell begins to recover and comes to terms with his new reality of being an amputee. And as he learns how to use his new prosthetic limb, he finds himself caught up in the bureaucratic red tape that too many wounded veterans experience, the exhausting medboard process. Out of sheer frustration, John takes it out on the criminal scum of the city. But when reality kicks in, John realizes he started something that's having an impact on the greater world around him, and thus has to reevaluate his motives. And moreover, just how far is John willing to go to finish this war he's declared against the criminals in Seattle? And will he even survive? From the creator of IDW's award-winning graphic novel Code Word Geronimo comes a new story about a different kind of warrior, Vindicated Inc., the first of its kind disabled veteran action hero comic. The Vindicated Inc. graphic novel crowdfunding campaign on fundmycomic.com is provided in the description of this video. We hope you become a contributor. Please share this link. Thank you.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all: movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan. Just want to remind you guys that you can find the show every Tuesday at 8 a.m. on both Rumble and YouTube. Do me a favor, if you're tuned in and you're watching the show, to like us or subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Rumble, like us on both platforms, make a comment, forward to a friend. We are growing our audience. I think when I started on YouTube, we had 6,000 subscribers, and now we're over 10,000. So we're making progress on our YouTube channel, and there's a lot of good content every day of the week. There's Military Mondays, and of course, there's my show on Tuesdays. So welcome back, guys. I hope you guys had a chance to go potty or do whatever else you have to do. I do have somebody that comes on pretty regularly, and he worked closely with you, Scott, and he needs that 2-minute warning, the 2-minute break, and that's John Bayless, because he runs to the bathroom.
I watched Johnny B.
Yeah, he does a pretty good job. He's a movie aficionado. He comes up with stuff. I think we did Maltese Falcon together, and it's like he was
the Black Dahlia.
The Black Dahlia, yeah, with Buzz Williams, who was an interesting guy because he, his dad and his grandfather. I don't know if you know this, Cliff. So Buzz Williams is a retired sergeant from Long Beach Police. His grandfather started the gangster squad in L.A. And so
we did The Departed together. Remember, we
did The Departed, right? And so he's really a fun guy.
He has a lot of knowledge on that stuff.
A lot of and he gave all of his grandpa and his dad stuff because his dad followed his grandpa into the squad to the Mob Museum in Las Vegas, which I have to get to yet. But
me too.
Very interesting. So okay, so let's roll into the next scene, and this is Figs' Fire. Now, I like Ray Liotta's character in here, but he does a despicable thing that ends up costing his girlfriend his life, and he's gotten some material from Edie Falco, or the bomb squad tech, and he actually burns down his house for the money. But his girlfriend, who's not supposed to be there, comes back and ends up dying, and so I had, as much as I like Ray Liotta's character here, I mean, this is not a guy who gets a pass in my book, because he ultimately is the manslaughter, because it would be manslaughter in this case. The behavior that he engaged in would normally, people would say, hey, this is likely to injure somebody. So that would be, I forget what they call that, Scott. It's not is it voluntary manslaughter, or it's like a second-degree murder charge? But he is essentially responsible for his girlfriend's death. So as much as I like his character and he's supportive of Freddie Heflin, Stallone's character, he is part of that corrupt team, and he's lost his sense of bearing as to what's right and wrong. Do you agree with that, Scott?
Yeah, I'd like the fact that in the movie, since I'd seen it before, I knew what happened, but the fact that they leave it so you don't know that it was him, and you think that they're trying to get to him, which is exactly what he thinks is. Well, he portrays that
right.
They're coming after him to try to cover it up. But I like the fact that in the movie they made it to where you were still guessing on, well, did he do it, or were they actually trying to kill him?
Probably a little bit of. They clearly were not happy with him. He had been one of Ray's henchmen, I guess, but he's pulling away, which happens. And so, and I think he was using some product there, so they saw him as a risk, right?
Right.
And he recognized that he's not a dumb guy, and he also recognized, he understands that this isn't just Ray and his team. This is the mafia. So when you're taking these guys on, the lone soldier trying to take them on, and he eventually has a conversation with Freddie about not taking them straight on. You got to come after him sideways, kind of thing. He gets into that.
Diagonal. Got to go diagonal.
Got to go diagonal.
But he's not. He may be friendly with Freddie, but to me he's not a sympathetic character because he did this. What do you think, Cliff?
Yeah, Scott was right. I'm glad they left that. We don't know yet. And like you said, Pat, so Sylvester Stallone's character finds the mirror with product on it, so we get that indication. But also, after his girlfriend is killed, then De Niro, Ray comes into the police station and he grabs Ray Liotta, and I thought he might going to say, just so you know, we didn't do this. But then, and I'm wondering why Ray Liotta didn't react, and go after him. But then we find out later, of course, that it's really him. So
right.
They kind of left that as a mystery. I think that was good writing and good filmmaking.
Well, I think here's the other thing too: is he eventually gets our sheriff here eventually gets visited by Mo as well. I don't know if that's this scene or one of the other scenes coming up, and he also talked to him when he visited him in the bar, and so. And Freddie has the attitude that, hey, he's part of the Rat Squad. He's not seeing them as somebody. He's been convinced that he's not a good guy, just because of the culture and the influence that he has with Ray and his team, right?
Right.
And some other things start coming out, and this scene, I think, there's an argument in the bar with Figs and other guys in the bar, and he alludes to the murder of a guy named Tunney. So a former police officer was murdered, allegedly in custody by which we find out is a correctional guy. But there's a breakdown with these guys, and then I guess it's predictable. If you're trying to corrupt a whole bunch of cops, you're gonna have some cracks, because a lot of people go into the business to do good things, and then suddenly they lose their bearing, and then there's they get into situations in which they can be targeted by the department, and they're always worried. Like, so Tunney, I guess he had choked somebody out, and so they were worried that he was going to talk, and he was going to go to the grand jury. So Mo and the department are working that precinct to look for gaps. And you know what? I did see this when I was in purgatory for a while on the department, as you guys know, and so I was at the academy, and the FBI was demanding all the cases from the sheriff's department, from IA, and they picked out some cases and went after some guys that were working MCJ. They ended up losing cases against 3 brothers who were there, but they tried to get them all to flip against something going on in MCJ, and they said that nothing there. They went after them for some mortgage stuff. I don't know if you guys heard this story, but they weren't able to make the case, which is unbelievable, because the feds have like a 99.9% conviction rate. So it's not unusual if you're, as Fig said, you're not going after them directly. You're just looking for opportunities to break that wall, to break that silence, or get into these guys, right? But you start hearing that. This is why, because Figs' partner is Tunney. He's the guy that was killed, right? So you're getting to see a lot more of the backstory and why Figs is afraid of these guys.
And why also Mo is as you can see, he gets he's creating an image for Heflin here. He's saying, because he introduces him to homeboy there, the mayor, or whoever's connected, and that guy says to call me. Oh, you want to be a copper? Call me, because I make things happen. We've had, and then he asked Mo, was he serious? Like, wow, I might have some hope here. I might have a change of career.
Right. Oh yeah. He's which he can't. I mean,
no. Yeah. Right.
Mo's just trying to get him to open up. He can't.
Yeah.
You could do a lot of things, but you can't like get over the civil service exams to get on the department if you can't hear in one ear. And I think it's important that so one of the things that we just kind of alluded to it. So Freddie, when he was a young man, rescued one of the ladies in the area, and in doing so, her car went off a bridge, and when he went down to rescue her and saved her life, he ended up losing his hearing in one of his ears, which precluded him from being on the NYPD. But it was okay for them to get hired in New Jersey, I guess. But and also he ends up having kind of an attraction to that girl, and she ends up marrying an NYPD officer, which further probably creates a great deal of insecurities for this guy, and even her husband is ultimately killed. So there's some cracks in the team here, and Ray is kind of pulling all the stops.
And Pat, let me give you a real life scenario. So it's on the internet. I can send you the link. So I helped produce for the Sheriff's Reserve a promotional recruitment video with Lou Ferrigno.
Oh,
and so if you could be in this meeting with the executives arguing, no, we're not showing this, because then Jay Leno's going to be on the Tonight Show showing Lou Ferrigno, and he can't hear somebody yelling for help, and it's going to be a big thing. No way. And the head of Reserve Forces wants it shown in recruitment. And oh man, so we went for like 5 hours of yelling and screaming, and they eventually didn't show it, only in a private, setting.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because Lou is hard of hearing. That's why he couldn't be but yet he was a spokesperson. He did, public service type things.
Do you remember when Sheriff McDonald changed our buttons to we had silver, and he changed those he changed them to brass, I think. Remember that, Scott?
I was gone, Pat.
I was gone.
Oh my God! I have to tell you, he did that, and he ended up on late night TV. They mocked him, because he said, well, uniform appearance is important. It could stop disruption, and they just played up, brass buckles, brass things. It'll stop the riots, and that's what they did. Just mocked them mercilessly.
Yeah, I would have liked that.
You didn't see that? You have to look it up.
Yeah,
I was gone I was 2013. I was gone. Yeah.
Yeah, you left early.
And it's the story why we ended up with silver buttons things is interesting too. It's copper was needed for the war effort, so they switched to the color that we had, and so it was just going back to what it used to be. There was, it's like, hey, if you're going to come in an organization, that was the least important thing to change, and that's why he got mocked pretty badly on this thing.
Pat, I don't think I ever got high enough to wear anything with buttons on it.
You never got one?
You did.
I never promoted high enough to wear anything with buttons.
You were a sergeant.
No. You know what? It was the keepers. So the keepers were changed to brass. And what else did they change to brass? It was those keepers. Anything that had a snap on it.
Snap on it, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was like, it was not, to me, it was not that big a big deal, but the way he presented it, this is important because you need to, and we all, I like a clean uniform appearance. That's just me. I don't think I like all the stuff that everybody's wearing, because it's, these outer vests, although I do believe they're great on your back. In a fight, I just don't think that's all these handholds that these guys get.
Hey, I worked hard getting those outer vests for the department.
I know. And, I remember us doing the study.
Yeah.
Remember the study?
Yeah. The Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah. So Cliff, Scott worked for me, and I said, okay, let's look at what's the value of it. Let's look at it scientifically is basically what I said, instead of the cool factor. It basically, putting the load on a gun belt, it as we all know, it destroys your back, destroys your lower back.
That's right.
And if you can put the load on the load-bearing vest, because I think that's what they called it, load-bearing vest.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you took the radio off, you took some of the other equipment off, and you still have your gun on your belt, and you might still have your mags on your belt. But a lot of other stuff you remove and you put on a load-bearing vest, because the vest is supported by your shoulders. It saves the back. And if you remember the old days, so upstate New York, this might have existed. The leather strap. See those coppers, the leather strap that goes down and it hooks on your belt on either side.
New York City troopers had that. Yeah. But
part of that is to lift that gun belt off your back, so it takes some of that load.
Yeah.
That's what that's all about.
And that's why now, rucking is healthy for you. Put on a weighted vest. It's actually good for weight bearing in a positive way, which the vest, as you said, would lead to that too.
Yeah, I think in a fight, it's a challenge, because now they got a lot of things to hold on. But, almost everybody's going to have a bad back because of a gun belt, right? So, so it's a trade-off. But if you have the load-bearing vest, then they are disadvantaged in a fight, right? So it's a big trade-off. But I think we started that fight in transit, Scott, and they eventually. I went to
EPC to sell it, and I gave them 3 choices: suspenders underneath the shirt that would stick out at the bottom and attach to and the Army Corps of Engineers, in the study that they did, they said the load-bearing vest was the best one.
Good for you guys.
They gave them the strap over the shoulder. The comment was, "We're not East Coast police officers. We don't wear straps across our uniform." I said, okay. So then they decided that transit could have the load-bearing vests. Yeah. And then now it's the whole department, which, we kind of really started it because it was like we looked at all our, injured people, and it was ankles, knees, hips, and back.
That's right. Yeah.
I just Googled searched a study on load-bearing vests or other alternatives, and it popped up that
I can't remember what I think we were
study.
We were just going over all of our injuries, and we just came up with, hey, why don't we look at these? Or you brought it up to me, hey, let's talk about it. And I said, yeah, I'll plow ahead, which is, I think, why people like working for me. It says, yeah, let's look at it. Let's see what it comes out with. And let's, if it made sense to me, I was worth trying for it. And that's where I think a lot of people, they're afraid. They wouldn't want to bring that up because they wouldn't want any executives to say, who's that crazy Jordan? Look what he's doing, right? What the heck is wrong with him? And I'm saying, hey, we're supposed to be looking for innovative ways to keep people at work. It really wasn't all that innovative. It's just common sense.
No, it's just, the funny thing is, most departments, like Orange County, almost every department wears outer vests. Of course, I brought that up, and it's like, we're not Orange County. Okay.
Yeah,
And then,
so we
you know,
had
we've
this
always, my hated argument,
traditionalist. Yeah.
my
Well,
hated argument is always, well, this is the way we've always done it. Well, that doesn't mean
yep.
it's right.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I mean,
You know,
things
I read
change
this.
over time. When you were
Right.
just, you know, a brand new cop, you had your revolver, you had maybe 2 pairs of handcuffs, your cuff key, and your speedy loaders. That was all that was on your belt.
Yep.
Then the department starts loading you up with pepper spray, tasers, extra magazines, and you went from like 10 pounds of weight to 22 pounds was the average.
I read this book years ago. It was about the development of military equipment. I go, why the hell would you read a book like that, right? And one of them was the M16. And so they used the AR-15 in Vietnam, or the Mini 14, whatever that different. And so they were developing a new rifle, but they had a general in charge of ammunition, and he argued, if I remember all the detail correctly, so the powder that went into an AR-15 round is kind of a chalk powder, and the powder that they had always used was kind of this hot burning, kind of a different kind of powder, different kind of it was black powder kind of thing, but it was dirtier. And so, but he insisted that the ammunition needed to be this. Well, the problem with that, when you got it in the field and you're using it, is it was causing jams. So the first part of the Vietnam War, we had a lot of jams simply because a general said, no, we've done it this way. We've always used this. It was a faster rate through the M16, but it caused jams, right? So it wasn't the ideal rate for it. And a lot of guys were found dead in Vietnam, breaking their rifle down, trying to clear a jam. And it took a while. And it was just because one guy said, it's always been this way. We're always going to do this. This is the way it's going to be. And probably the military contractor didn't challenge him. But people, you know, it was an interesting story that people paid with their lives for that stuff. But yeah, you're right. We've always done it this way. Why should we change? Because progress.
Things change.
So I appreciate you bringing up that story, because it's true, right? Things change. Hey, let's bring up, so these guys, they're going to set up Superboy. We've already heard them talk about it. They ended up killing one of the other partners they want to kill Superboy, so they have a party for him, right? And he gets warned by his aunt. His aunt is married to Ray, right? So and she warns him, and she's also sleeping with somebody else who's on the block. So there's this whole Peyton Place thing going on, and he sees the note just before going out to talk to Ray, who wants to talk to him. And 2 of his henchmen come in, and I just can't see this. I mean, this is where there's so many things that get unrealistic about this, but they're not going to like just have a thug kill him. They're not going to just have him, you know, murdered at work. They're going to actually kill him. Of course, they're stuck with this thing. He's still alive. Eventually, somebody's going to find him. Everybody thinks he's dead. They already had a funeral for him, but now they're going to change his identity. I mean, it really does bring up, okay, how stupid could this guy Superboy be to believe that they're going to give him a new identity and send him somewhere else? He had to see this coming, particularly since he kind of knew that they might have done something in the past with Officer Tunney, right? So they try to kill him, and here's the other, okay, I got to ask this, right? So I wrote this down as a note. Scott, autopsy, I think somebody drowns in a river and they got chlorinated chlorine in their lungs.
I was going to bring that point up.
Right. I mean, okay. These are all supposed to be really smart guys, cops, but they're going to drown him in a pool?
Well, oh, yeah, and the autopsy is going to show, he drowned in a chlorinated pool.
Yeah, and they're going to throw him in the river.
He didn't drown in the East River. There'd be a lot more pollution in him if he did.
So, I mean, immediately I saw that. So I guess that's the way a cop looks at it. And, but here's the other thing too. These guys are feeling stressed. They know that maybe this was a bad idea, having them jump off the bridge. Now they got to clean up their mess. They all want to keep living in Garrison. None of them want to go to prison. They want the money to keep flowing. And Mo is beating down their back. So you make mistakes when you feel pressure. I mean, tell me your experience, Cliff. You make mistakes when you feel pressure, right?
Yeah. I kind of wish they would have went that way and had him, you know what I mean? They got him in the pool, and then, you know, during questioning, right, they would have came out with the where they would have laid into him with the chlorinated pool, the autopsy, and to see that reaction. And I think people watching would have enjoyed that kind of forensic files, reveal. I don't know. I think that would have been great. You guys that's a good storyline, really.
Well, now with DNA, I mean, even there's so much touch DNA and all this other stuff. I mean, you can't. I mean, it's funny because my wife and I watch some of those shows, and I just think these people, what makes these people think they're going to get away with this? And I'm sure there are people who get away with murders now, but as technology develops and we get better and better at stuff, it's really hard to get away with it, and cops should know it, and these guys, theoretically really smart guys, should know this.
I heard that because of some of these shows, they had maybe, and you guys. They had even crime scenes in like Compton, where they killed somebody. They basically they removed the whole damn like bathroom, right? They took everything out that could be used to garner evidence. So if they murdered somebody in the bathroom, they took down the walls, they took out the tile, they took everything out.
And took it to the dump, right?
Yeah, and so they were actually teaching criminals how to clean up a crime scene. Really?
Yeah. Well, progress.
Progress, yeah.
As bad as it is, it's progress. But yeah, that was the first thing I saw. I'm thinking to myself, as they're luring him to the pool, I was
thinking that too.
I think that was one of my things back when my wife and I saw the movie in the 90s. Is this kid? They're luring him out. Just three guys. The whole party's gone all of a sudden. These three guys are waiting for him in the backyard by the pool. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah,
I would have stepped out of that sliding glass door and said, "Oh, I forgot something in my car or something," and then got the hell out of there. But they
did indicate, because they did say, why would he have that frame of mind? So he, because the guy's saying, "How does this work? You guys are going to take me?" I guess because they promised him a new identity. We're going to set you up somewhere. So maybe he's thinking, to go along with the storyline, as far-fetched as it was, they kind of let him. Okay, this guy. Are you going to take me to this train station? And I was thinking of Yellowstone right there. Yeah, he was going to go to the train station. All right.
Yeah, but the whole, and then I'm thinking these guys are supposed to be these, great cops,
right?
Dirty as hell, and they said he jumped into the East River, and now they're going to drown him in a chlorinated pool. That doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
I guess investigating is one thing. Actually committing crime and to get away with
another, right?
Is quite another, right? And
different skill set. Yeah.
Yeah. You never catch the smart ones.
No.
And he already had the note.
Yeah, that's right. He already had the note. So they're going to
kill you. They already
had
the
note. I would have with like I said, I would have been in the wind as soon as I saw that note.
Yeah, when they put that in there, they shouldn't have had that storyline go that way, because he had foreknowledge that was what was going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I would have took that gun and made my way out the front door, not back to the pool.
Well, so obviously he's armed himself, and he ends up shooting kind of in the air in the pool, whatever, to get these guys back off. And he should have just shot him.
Yeah, that's what he should have done.
They tried to kill me, and then he takes off running. But as he's running, the other guy, a guy who was at work, John, his friend, comes home and sees what's going on, and he says, "I thought you guys were going to set him up with a new identity and stuff." And this is where Keitel's character says, "I'm not that powerful." And he makes
that's right. I'm not all that.
I'm not all that. He says something like, "I'm not all that. I can't do that." Because he's got the word, you got to clean up your mess from up high, right? You got to clean up your mess, and ultimately, after he does all this stuff, additionally, Ray manages to get the case shut down, and this is where Mo and De Niro's character is shut out. So he's cleaning up his loose ends, but clearly there's other people on the take higher, right? And and I was reading. I forget what book I was reading or what movie I saw where it was Serpico. I haven't done the movie Serpico yet. I'll have to do it. It wasn't just the guy. It was people all the way up the chain of command.
Well, the mayor shut it down in this movie, correct?
Yeah, he shut it down
from the mayor's office.
But the implication is people higher up are getting the piece of the action. So Ray may have corrupted the 37th precinct, but people up the chain of command, obviously not everybody, but enough to where he has some connection with the mayor to get the case shut down, right? Because the mayor's probably got some people making donations that are connected to these guys, and so, and he doesn't want the scandal, so he shuts it down. And I do believe, I mean, I had a guy on, and he's coming on in a couple weeks. Chicago is a very corrupt town, right? Probably more so than New York. And when you're in an environment of corruption, it looks normal to you. Does that make sense? When you are raised in a cesspool of corruption, it looks like it's normal. That's every day, right? And so even though it's surprising for us that the mayor would shut it down, political considerations, this and that, the guy's making donations. I mean, Mayor Adams in New York right now is under investigation for some donation issues. So I don't know where that'll go, but it becomes normal everyday thing for some folks. Hey, so the next scene, that I wanted to do is, it's not Johnny, it's Joey. So Joey it killed Joey, and this is, they realize that Joey's not going to go along with them, right? And I think this is the copper where the guy gets thrown off the roof, right?
Yeah, but he was also having relations with Ray's wife.
Yeah.
So Ray's got two things that him dying would solve two problems.
Yeah, and I never understood this. I mean, okay, so we might as well just talk about this. So Joey has a beautiful wife. This is the one that Heflin's interested in. I don't remember her name now, but okay, Ray's wife was nice looking, but she was an older lady, and why I'm sorry, but why are you leaving caviar for? I don't get it. I went on this stuff, but you see this, there were guys on the department who would get caught up in stuff with the ladies, right? I've had a few cases like that where I had to deal with them, and then their wife comes in, and you see their wife and go, what is this guy doing? And so I never really understood the mindset of some of those guys. They have a beautiful wife at home, and then they go and they play around. So I don't know if you guys want to comment on that, but I never understood it myself.
I never got it either. I've been with the same woman for 43 years. I can only deal with one at a time.
But so on this one, they decide, and then they never really make the connection. I couldn't hear the suspect when the suspect is trying to kill this guy, kill the officer. They show the call for help. His his partner's injured, and Joey's chased after him, and he's in a fight for his life. You can see that he doesn't have. He knocks a gun out of his hand. This is where I always carry two guns. I know you guys did too. So the second gun would have been coming out, I think.
Yeah.
And he's in a fight with this guy, and he's losing this fight. Joey's kind of losing this fight. He always seems to be on the wrong side of this fight. And clearly this was, didn't quite catch what he said. I went over it a couple times, what the suspect said to Joey. I don't know if you guys caught it or not, but it implied that it was Ray. This was Ray doing this. Did you hear something? Did you hear him say anything?
I don't remember hearing him saying anything. I heard him, like telling him to quit. Tell me you'll quit,
You can go home to your family. Yeah, I'll let you go. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And then he attacks him, and it's on. Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't understand his partner. I mean, his partner's on the radio saying that he cut his tendon and he can't move. Well, why wouldn't you? I mean, I would have done everything in my power to crawl over and I would have just started taking shots at him, whether I hit him or not.
Yeah.
At least he would be afraid that I'm going to shoot and kill him. So him just laying there on the radio all bleeding because he cut his tendon, that part I worked with partners that I know if they were down like that and I was in a fight, they would do everything in their power.
Yeah.
He's already stabbed you or sliced your tendon. So you got you got whatever justification you need just to start taking shots at him, because now he's trying to kill your partner. So I didn't get that part where he just kind of laid there and let it all happen.
Yep. Well, you got one good leg. You can at least hop over there. What's that Monty Python skit? I still got two arms. Come back here and fight.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm still ready to go. So what'd you think of he ends up he's hanging on the building, and so everybody's coming for the call for help, and which is typical. I mean, when somebody's calling for help, the cavalry comes, right? So that's real life, and they're rushing. And now we in West Hollywood we had a lot of multi-story buildings, but not all of them were like a lot of them were mostly office buildings. We didn't have high-rise living arrangements, so it's not like you're running up 20 stairs, but these guys are running up to catch them because they don't. A lot of these older buildings don't have elevators in New York, right?
Right.
And Ray is up in the middle of the building, and he sees that Joey's hanging. He knows that Joey's a liability, and I always thought, God, did Ray set him up? I always felt that Ray set him up with this guy. This was a setup.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I initially thought the same thing.
I mean, the black guy tries to walk away. Maybe it's a warning to him. I don't know. But then he attacks him again, and he throws him, over the side, and he's hanging onto the antenna. But Ray looks up at him, sees, and he closes the door, and he pretends like he's trying to open them with a lockpick.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever saw anybody carrying a lockpick. I work. It's like when your lockpick is your
did.
boot. Your boot.
I did.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guys who came over, from the marshals who used to do evictions, they carried lockpicks.
Did they really?
Yeah.
And
they were good at it. Yeah, they were good at it. Man, I think it was. Yeah.
But in the scene, the one of the guys behind Ray says, "Why are we not kicking the door?"
Yeah. Exactly. Why are we not doing the obvious?
Yeah. Why are you trying to lockpick it when we just kick it open? There's enough of us standing here.
Yeah.
I almost got it. And of course, he's just trying to delay it so that Joey falls. And
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of his problems is eliminated. And now he's only got one to worry about. Now, when Superboy ran away, I guess I should clear up. He ran away, and he's hiding in the woods near Garrison, and he's getting help from his aunt, who's Ray's wife. But he's hiding. He knows they're trying to kill him, and he doesn't know what he's going to do. And they do show the water tower, that he's probably hiding in the water tower. But they got rid of Joey now, and it also the story is kind of fleshed out a little bit because they're talking about what actually is going on in the 37th. So Ray basically has given the mafia free reign to do whatever they want in terms of dealing drugs within reason. You see the headlines, they're making arrests. So they're putting up their sacrificial lambs to make arrests, highest in the city. But in reality, they're not really shutting them down.
Right.
It's controlled. They're making money, and Ray is making sure that they still look good. Everybody gets promotion. Everybody's happy, and they get their houses in Garrison. That's the shtick. And I think Figs finally lays that out. He lays kind of let that story out for everybody. And we did have, like, I don't know if you guys saw Michael Dow at the 75th. It was this NYPD cop who went corrupt, and he had a whole crew of guys. It was similar to the one I just talked about. So these things did happen, and this is kind of real life stuff. But so I got to talk about the princess, right? So it's so Stallone, after Joey's wife is the princess, right? And he dies, and Stallone is asking questions. Now you could see early in the movie that he's really enamored with her, right? And he loves her and all this stuff. But clearly Joey, now in this scene, his princess is not so much, is what I entitled the scene. So he's sitting down with Joey's wife after Joey's dead, and Stallone starts asking questions, and she responds ultimately, basically, knock it off. I need this pension. I have what I have. It implies that Joey told her what was going on, or at least some of it. And she doesn't want anybody digging into it because she's in a good spot. Even though her husband's dead, she understands that her bread is buttered, so to speak, or some other term you can use, sticking with Ray. And the suggestion is he just died in the line of duty. I'm sure she believes that he just died in the line of duty, but she doesn't want anything else dug into. And I think this is at the time when I think Freddie really thinks, wait a minute, these guys are really corrupt. Moe's visited me. I'm seeing it. I know what's happening. I've been challenged to do something about it. Now I go to the one person that I think might agree with me, that I knew way back when, who I saved her life, and she shuts him down. Right?
Yeah.
And it tells him, one, she's not the princess that he thought she was. That's why I said not so much. But also that she's okay with the corruption. So she's not the good person he thought she was. What do you think, Scott?
Well, if I was, bringing home extra cash and stuff, my wife would be the first one to be going, where do we get this? So, a lot of these movies portray like the wife doesn't know. They all know. When you're coming home with a brand new car and she's looking at your finances going, where do we get the money for this? So, I mean, to me, she knew what was going on because they got a house that they probably couldn't afford and looked at other homes. And then all of a sudden in this town of Garrison, they can get a beautiful home with a low interest loan. And, my wife would know exactly how many pennies I have in a paycheck.
Yeah,
which is fine, which is great because I don't really keep track. So it's good to have somebody that can manage your money for you. But I was always like, I always felt that she knew because like she would never, like when he was beaten in that one scene where, you can tell that they were fighting. He's stuck outside in his underwear.
Yeah.
And she just says, oh, we just had an argument. It's no big deal. And it's like, okay, if this guy's such a bad guy, why are you so afraid, to leave him?
Right.
So if he's such a great guy, and according to, scenes in the movie, it's not the first time he did it.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And later in the scene, as he's leaving, somebody is in his back seat and tells him, Freddie, you need to knock it off. Or the comment is, you're going to be hurt. You're not going to know when or where.
Yeah.
Right. Pretty ominous, And he's decided. I think they said in the movie, you're a law enforcement officer. You're not a cop. I think that's one of the other statements they said, and kind of giving the cop a derogatory. These guys are cops, but they're corrupt. But you're a law enforcement officer. So you're on a different side of the track than these guys. I think Fig says that earlier on. But they see that Freddie's starting to ask questions. They see he got influenced by Mo. He's going around town.
Well, Mo tells him that when they're talking in Freddie's office, Mo tells him that he's not really a cop.
Yeah, you're law enforcement like me. I'm law enforcement. You're law enforcement.
That's right. That's right. He's the one who said
you're
that.
You're not
right.
a cop, and it's like, yeah, that's a great way to get information to somebody by knocking them down.
Yeah, usually you want to be friends with them, right?
Yeah,
Tell
exactly.
them, you want them to identify with you. Yeah. You're not me.
Yeah, telling them,
well, we are together, but I'm still a cop. You're not.
You're not.
Yeah, it's funny when I interviewed when I had the federal air marshals, because they talk with everybody, they work with everybody, and they said, yeah, it's different. It's different around the country, and you're dealing with different people, different money. He says, bigger cities, they have a lot of resources. And when you go to smaller jurisdictions, you're bringing the resources because they just don't have it, right? And so it's different police. I remember I was thinking about buying some property at Cedar. It's over in Utah. It was there's a ski place up there, and I talked to one of the cops in the area. He goes, "Oh yeah, I work here part-time and here part-time and here part-time so that I can get full-time cop hours." So he's a part-time cop in 3 different locations. And, oh yeah, I'm the only guy on for this many, so it's, our perception of law enforcement, NYPD's perception, it's just completely different for a lot of different people around the country. And they just don't have that same level of experience.
Well, out here, it's an hour response time to get to where I'm at.
Oh, is it really?
Oh, yeah.
For even for immersion, huh?
Oh, yeah. So
everybody's got to learn to shoot there, right? Just in case. But of course, it is Tennessee, right?
It is Tennessee. Everybody's got a gun, but you don't even have to. You can carry concealed or open. You don't need a license to do it. But yeah, that's you hear people like working in a big city, and then I come out here, and then you hear these politicians on TV talking about, oh, we're going to get take your guns and everything, and it's like, well, what does somebody like me do then?
Right.
The cops are not going to, and I tell people in the city, hey, are you willing to fight? You don't want a gun in your house. I get it. That's not for everybody. That's your choice. You make your own choices. But are you willing to fight somebody for 4 or 5 minutes before the cops can get there? Well, I live in the city. Yeah, I'm talking about 4 or 5 minutes in the city.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, longer
So
now.
you got to be willing to fight somebody to save your family for 4 to 5 minutes before the cops get there. Then when they do get there, they're going to wait for at least another guy before they come in your house. So
our goal
you
was
make
to
the
get
choice.
our goal, I think we had a big jurisdiction in transit, and we had our emergency response times of 6.5 minutes, which was pretty damn good. But we had to work on that because we had such long runs, even for the city, right? And we couldn't count on the PD getting there quickly. But anyway, one of the things Fig said is because he's telling him, hey, he's telling him to just let it go, Freddie, let it go. And Figs is dirty, and he says being right is not a bulletproof vest, which I thought was probably one of the best lines in the movie. I think
the best line. Yeah,
being right is not a bulletproof vest because they're looking for Superboy. Superboy presented himself to Heflin and then runs away before they could get him. And then he goes to find him, and he does eventually find him, and he takes him to the jail. And all I could think of was when he takes him to the jail and he's leading him out by himself. All I could think of was the movie High Noon.
yeah.
You know what I mean? He's by himself. He's outnumbered. The gang it's him against the gang, and they don't want to kill him because I think they think they can still control him. His deputies have abandoned him, just like in the movie High Noon. But Freddie's going to take a principled stance. He's going to take him to New York. He's going to take him to Mo, right? And he tried to take some information to Mo and De Niro's character, and he says, "Hey, it's shut down. You're too late. You had your chance to be a cop. You're not. You're not. You just." And he's needling him, and he's shaking him up, and he's hoping that he comes through. But here's a couple things about the shooting, right? So they knock him down. I think it was 3-on-1 on the original thing, and they shoot next to his ear to deafen him. And I actually like the scene where he's, instead of jumping in the car, though, he's walking to where it's at with the shotgun. Now, good choice. It almost looked like an Ithaca that he was carrying.
That was an Ithaca for sure. Yeah.
Was it? It looked just like the shotguns we carried, and he loaded it ahead of time. And you can see as he's walking, and one of the guys sees him coming, and he shoots him. Doesn't kill him, which surprises me because normally that would take him out. But did you notice what he did? It's like he short stroked it.
Right. Yeah.
Did you notice he short stroked it? So when he goes to shoot the next guy, he doesn't have a round, or I don't know if it was a double feed or he short stroked it. A short stroke leaves the. Trying to remember what it does. It locks it up because you don't get a live round.
It locks up with the not getting the extended cartridge out.
It doesn't eject the other one out, right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't fully eject that cartridge out, and so when he's got to continue this gunfight, so I like great choice for Freddie. You're going into multiple suspects who are armed, and of course these guys are all carrying these little chiefs.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Did you notice that too? I mean,
I couldn't hit a barn with a broadside of a barn with a.
Yeah, I know.
Smith
okay.
I always joked that I'd fire 5 rounds at him, throw the gun, and run away.
Yeah,
I could never hit anybody more than 5-10 feet away.
Yeah, you get you do 15 feet with that, and just when you pull.
Oh, the recoil would be just tremendous.
And the recoil on it, maybe one accurate shot, if that. But yeah, it's a terrible. But they all got him because I guess it's the cool factor.
Yeah.
But he short strokes the shotgun. He has to dump a shotgun, and he pulls out. It looks like a 6.86. Boom. Center rings him, and they do a scene that shows he's a pretty good shot. And then, of course, he sees his guy. I thought, no, this guy, if he took a full load of double odd buck, he's down. He ain't shooting at him. But he still looks like a threat. So Freddie shoots him, and then another guy comes, and this is, you see the scene where Figs is leaving town, right? So this is shooting. Figs is leaving town, and he does the big scene where his conscience gets the better of him, and he drives back just in time.
Shoot Ray.
So here's just in time to shoot, not shoot Ray. There was a third guy. He shoots the guy who's dropping a bead on. So here he is with this. Here's Stallone with his broken ear. He's going to shoot him. He's going to shoot Freddie, and then Figs takes him out, right? And here's one of the other cops from the neighborhood just watching what's going on as he's walking to the shooting scene. And so Fig arrives, and he actually ends up shooting him, shooting one of the suspects, and then he ends up shooting. So here he is with the shotgun. That looks like an Ithaca shotgun, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So here's the first guy. Oop. We have to, Scott. So we get copyright strikes if we use video clips. So this is why we do this. So here's the first guy with his chief. I think he's going to hit somebody, and of course he doesn't hit Freddy. And you know, I don't like the port arms things too. You're going to be leading. You're going to be leading with the barrel going, and he does this kind of a hip shot, which I would have been up on the shoulder, but there he goes, takes him out.
Well, he's shooting, and then he comes out and he gets it.
Right. So, and this is where Freddy pulls out his 686, right?
Yeah,
that's what it looks like to me. 680,
Yeah.
like a 4.5 inch 686. And it takes his shot. And the interesting thing is, what most people don't is, if you have not been involved in shooting, you end up going with your training, right? Your cognitive thinking is degraded. You are now reacting based upon your training and instinct and your skill sets. In this case, he hits him, center rings him, takes him down. As we know, Scott, that doesn't always put him down. And they headshot. I know. I won't tell that story today, but he takes him out, and here's he sees this guy is still in the game, and then he takes him out, and then he's shot. I believe he's shot by the third guy, or he's about to be shot by the third guy, and Fig takes him out. So let's see if that scene rolls up. So here he is. He gets shot. So I think he did get shot by the third guy.
Oh yeah, there he is.
And then this is where Fig shows up, and he hits him. There we go. Another guy with a chief. Of course, he hits him, right? You know.
Yeah.
With one hand, cigarette in his mouth, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, why do we do training? These guys are so great, and he hits them
with 2 inches.
Yeah. No, I used to carry a 2.5 inch 686, but that's a heavier gun, so you don't get the recoil. You know, I really liked my Smith & Wesson. And now Figs turns towards Ray, who's now in the picture window, dropping a bead on Freddy, and he shoots through the picture window. And then Heflin goes into the house looking for Ray, and he eventually kills Ray inside the house as Ray's trying to kill him. And he finds Superboy alive, which surprised me. They took him to the house. I would have thought they'd had a plan just to get him completely out of there. But he does eventually save Superboy. But that's a scene. So a couple of things, the short stroking, handguns in a confined space are good. Obviously, the Chiefs are unrealistic, right? That you're going to hit anything with those things, right? The shotgun's good for Stallone, and Stallone's carrying a good sidearm. So in reality, weapon-wise, he was far ahead of these guys, and you would have thought they'd have been ready for an eventuality. Superboy fighting for his life, you know. So he ends up staying and taking Superboy in, which is the next scene.
Yeah, I was going to ask Cliff when I saw it was Cliff coming on. I was going to ask him. I've never been anywhere near New York, let alone New York City, which I swear my wife wants me to go, but I'm not going to New York City unless she tells me we are. But anyway,
yeah.
Is there that many cops hanging out in front of One Police Plaza? No wonder there's so much crime in New York. They're all at One Police Plaza.
Well, that's kind of the major headquarters for all the executives, I guess. So it probably would be, I imagine. But we went to New York this year, and we had a great time. We were in Manhattan. It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just shocked at how many people. I'm like thinking of our department. There's nobody hanging out front.
Yeah, that seems a little weird. That all these marked units are out there. I don't think that would be accurate.
Yeah, you're right. So I mean, we probably should just roll into that scene. And the scene is, this is after the shooting, and he's taken Superboy up, and he can't hear. And it's interesting. He says, "Hey, you can't hear. And then
because Ray's swearing at him, and I like when Sylvester goes, "I can't hear you."
I can't hear you, Ray. Yeah, and the last scene that was pretty good. Because he is swearing at him, and so they turn him over and they do the announcement. They do the whole cinematic thing where they're announcing on the radio, this person was arrested, this person arrested. They broke up this corruption thing, and Superboy's alive, and this guy testified against this. So they put it out on the radio as their way cinematically of telling everybody what happened. And then we end up with Stallone across the river, still looking at the big city, and he's probably realizing, I'm okay where I'm at.
It all worked out better for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I could hire that. I don't know if I could work around that deputy.
Because he abandoned him. Yeah.
Because he abandoned him.
I know. I couldn't. Yeah.
The other one's like, I'm going back to Almira upstate for my old job. And like, my wife says for me to come home. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to some degree, they know it's corrupt, and Freddie's part of it.
Yeah, that's true.
And Freddie just decides, okay, I'm taking a stance. I'm taking, I mean, you're right. I would stay too. It'd have been a 2-on-1, but hey, it's high noon, right? We got to get the top. Everybody abandons the marshal in the end. It was Marshall Kane and High Noon, but here is Freddie Heflin. Good show, though. This was a good, entertaining movie. It
really was. We enjoyed it. My wife watched it with me. Yeah, we had a good time with it.
Yeah. So, well, thanks for coming on the show, guys. I think let's see how much time I got left here. Oh, we got a couple minutes. So, Scott, did you enjoy reviewing the movies?
Yes. Hopefully you'll have me back.
I will have you back. Yeah.
It was great to see. I mean, I haven't seen Cliff in years. We used to get in trouble together.
Well, Cliff, I'm working on it, right? So
yeah, you're looking good. And you're looking good.
Gym there, and
no, I know you eat healthy. Yeah,
this was great. It was great. I was wondering what movie it was going to be, and
it was a good movie. I'm glad you picked this one. Yeah.
Well, I picked such a wide range, because I did the Maltese Falcon, and that I had, because I posted on the sheriff's department's, the retirees Facebook pages and things like that, and I actually got a lot of comments, or way more comments, on the Maltese Falcon than other stuff, and even on Twitter, because I'll post there to market the show. And I thought, okay, I'll have to go back, because it was a good show. I had Danny R. Smith on for that one, and he writes those detective novels, hard-boiled detective novels.
Yeah.
And he was really good, because he really liked the dialogue of Bogart in that movie, right? And I did do High Noon, and I did it with Matt Rodriguez and John Bayless. And I wanted to do that one because it was, when I first started this show, I needed an outlet for my political commentary. So I wanted to talk about the abandonment of police, and I felt High Noon was a perfect movie for that. And we did get into that, right? But now that I have my other show that's more political, I still get into politics a little bit, but I get to get a little more of the cinematic stuff here. And so I'm kind of liking the show a little more now, because like I said, I got my outlet for politics on the other stuff. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on, Scott. I'll definitely reach out. I've had Danny Rigoletto on. I've had, I don't know if you know Mike Ascalise. I've had him on a few times. John Bayless comes on. Every now and then I get Matt to come back, and he's a busy guy. And Cliff every now and then comes on, but he also will guest host for me. I might have to hit you up coming up in March, because my granddaughters are coming to town, Cliff. So I'll let you know if you're.
Let me know, because I'm going to upstate New York the 13th through the 19th. So I'll be in Rochester, New York.
So 2 things: the guy that wants to come on, the chief from Orlando, send me his contact information, and the guy that helps people write books. I don't know if you sent me that contact, but if you did, I lost it, and I'll reach out and let him know I'm going to reach out and talk to him. Because I like bringing those guys on. All right, Martine, I think we are at the end of the show. I think if you guys stick around for a quick debrief after the show, then I would appreciate it. Martine, you can take it away.